Do terms like knowledge worker, smart goals, or management by objectives ring a bell? They all come from a single man, the prolific management expert Peter Drucker. When you think of modern business management or management principles, Peter Drucker is the first name that resonates. In 2005, shortly before his death, the Business Week magazine called him the man who invented management. In an incredibly productive career spanning over 6 decades, he wore many hats. Drucker was a prolific management writer, an eminent teacher, a celebrated management guru, an effective consultant, and a legendary visionary. The Austrian-born management consultant wrote 39 books and countless other articles on almost all aspects of management. It's a daunting task to cramp up all these lessons into a single video. So, in this video, we're going to highlight 7 of his extremely impactful management principles, which never go out of fashion. Here we go. Number 1. Effectiveness, it can be learned. Peter Drucker put an end to this debate. The bottom line is that you don't need to be born with all those incredible management skills or effectiveness. You can make a deliberate choice to observe, learn, and practice effectiveness until it becomes your way of life. You may have noticed that some executives have a high level of intelligence while they're not as effective. While their natural intelligence is high, they fail in imagination or creativity. So some of the most brilliant men out there produce suboptimal results despite their best efforts. On the contrary, some of the most effective professionals have just an average IQ. In his celebrated book, The Effective Executive, Peter Drucker demonstrated that effectiveness requires systematic efforts. He advises an executive to come out of the regular flow of events, which merely keeps them busy. Rather, they should focus on what is truly important. In other words, leave the distractions out, simplify complexities, and concentrate your energy and efforts on what's most crucial. According to Drucker, effectiveness is a habit, and like all habits, effectiveness is also a product of repeated practices. While practices are simple, they need a great deal of discipline to repeat again and again every day. This is precisely why the majority of executives we see are not as effective as they could be. Number 2. Know your time because we are ill-equipped to manage it. We're often advised to manage our work well. However, according to Peter Drucker, this approach is bound to fail. An effective executive doesn't start with the tasks in mind. Rather, their focus is on how to utilize each unit of time on what matters the most. Drucker suggests a 3-step process to manage one's time most effectively. These steps are recording time, managing time, and consolidating time. So first of all, you need to find out the tasks that are draining the lion's share of your time. This requires you to observe and record how much time is consumed by each task in a day. Next, you need to cut out all the unproductive tasks that keep you engaged while adding no value to your final goals. For example, in a corporate setting, unproductive and lengthy meetings can consume a lot of time for the executives. So managing time involves getting rid of tasks and activities that fritter away a good amount of time, while having no solid results. Lastly, you need to consolidate time. It simply means you need to devote a fairly significant amount of time to an important task to get it done effectively. Devoting a few minutes here and there with repeated interruptions not only lowers effectiveness, but also wastes your time. They also break your flow. In the words of Peter Drucker, to have small dribs and drabs of time at his disposal will not be sufficient even if the total is an impressive number of hours. Ideally, you should allocate a time block of 30 minutes or an hour to work on a task uninterruptedly. To summarize, know where your time is going, prune the time wasters, and devote a big chunk of time to clear something in one go. Number 3. Ask, what can I contribute? An effective executive has a significant contribution to the overall goals of the team or the organization as a whole. Whatever you're doing on a day-to-day basis must somehow have an effect on the larger picture. So you need to ask what you can contribute to the larger goal. No executive works in isolation. Executives have superiors, subordinates, and other collaborators. So one's plans, tasks, and activities must be executed in clear coordination with others to maximize outward contribution. Rather, most executives focus on authority over their subordinates. According to Peter Drucker, an executive who is worried about authority and downward control is an ineffective executive. Rather, effective executives focus on outward contributions. When executives focus on outward contribution, their vision widens. They can now see the larger picture. Such executives can visualize how their own contributions are instrumental in achieving the larger goals of the organization. These executives would then start thinking about customers, suppliers, investors, and other stakeholders. Relating thereto, Peter Drucker also suggested 4 important pillars of outward contribution. These are communication, teamwork, self-development, and development for others. When you take care of these 4 requisites, you'll be able to ensure your own growth and the growth of the organization you serve. Number 4. Build on your strengths, not on your weaknesses. Abraham Lincoln hired General Grant as his new commander-in-chief even after knowing about his alcoholism. The reason was that Grant alone showed a tremendous capacity to plan and lead winning campaigns. Lincoln played to Grant's strengths. You must have heard the often repeated advice, play to your strengths, so many times that it's almost become a cliche. However, do you know Peter Drucker was one of the first management authors to elucidate this principle in a managerial context? Every day, an executive is presented with varied tasks, situations, and responsibilities. It's easy, and sometimes intuitive, to get bogged down by your weaknesses, to deal with all these complexities. So to overcome these situations, Drucker's suggestion is to count on your own strengths, the strengths of your superior or subordinates, and the opportunities in the situation you are in. After all, you can only build on your strengths and not your weaknesses. Peter Drucker also advised managers to focus on the strength areas of candidates while hiring new staff. In Drucker's words, there is hardly any well-rounded employee who only has strengths and no weaknesses. People with pronounced strong areas also have significant areas of weakness. Someone who excels in programming can have limited interpersonal skills. So a manager who wants to avoid weaknesses is only going to build a mediocre team. The idea is to focus on the strong areas of a candidate with respect to their work responsibilities. Number 5. First thing first and one thing at a time. While multitasking has almost become a ritual in today's fast-paced life, Drucker warned against it many decades ago. Human brains are not capable of processing multiple tasks at a time, so trying to do 2 or 3 things simultaneously lowers the effectiveness of all the tasks. There are always more tasks at hand than the time at your disposal, so it's just a matter of common sense that we need to prioritize what needs to be done. Based on this priority list, Drucker advises us to pick the first thing first and get it done. Once the first thing is done, should you move to the second priority and get it done too? Drucker says no. Once a priority is completed, you need to reevaluate your entire situation again and create a new priority list, because once a priority work is done, it alters the relative priority of other tasks. Here, Drucker cited the example of GE's legendary CEO Jack Welch, who served the company as its CEO for about 20 years. Jack Welch's first priority was to get out of all the unnecessary businesses GE was involved in. Once this task was completed, Jack Welch periodically reviewed his priority list to find the next number 1 priority. Number 6. Effective executives make effective decisions. Executives need to make decisions, and decisions lead to results. Effective decisions lead to effective results, and ineffective decisions lead to ineffective results. In Drucker's word, an effective executive is one who focuses on the quality of the decisions rather than the quantity. It doesn't matter how many decisions you're making a day. Peter Drucker said, "What is needed are a few, but fundamental decisions. What is needed is the right strategy rather than razzle-dazzle tactics." In the real world, making the right decision can be quite difficult because of uncertainties. Real-world decisions are not always about choosing between right and wrong. Most often, we need to choose between 2 alternatives that are equally likely to be right. Or it involves a choice between almost right and probably wrong. In these situations, we may be tempted to go with the most popular opinion or the majority decision, but Drucker warns us against such a groupthink situation too. He suggests we must look for all the available facts to test our opinions and hypotheses before selecting the most appropriate alternative. Lastly, according to Drucker, a decision is merely an intention until it's implemented. This is because decisions are often made through conceptual understanding. If such concepts can't be applied to a real-life situation, it's an ineffective decision at best. For instance, an executive may decide to cut costs by laying off employees. However, laying off might cause lower quality or a compromise on customer services. This decision isn't based on practicality. In Drucker's world, a good decision must be based on its applicability and practicality to solve a real problem. Number 7. Effectiveness is all about focusing on the solutions first. How many times have you been overwhelmed with the myriad set of problems in life? Large or small, we all have a different set of problems to deal with in day-to-day lives. It's also incredibly tempting to hang on with the problems and whine about them, while completely ignoring the opportunities that lie ahead. It's common human psychology that we focus on negativity first. This not only drains out positivity, but also wastes precious time, which is probably the most important resource. What Peter Drucker suggests is a counterintuitive approach to focus on the opportunities and solutions first. So his advice for firms is to give a higher priority to external scopes and possibilities. The challenges must be placed in the context of solutions. For managers, Drucker's advice is not to discuss problems first until there is anything catastrophically wrong. A problem should be brought to the table for discussion only when the potential cures have been well thought out. Thank you for watching, and check out our channel for other interesting videos in the business world.